Have you ever stubbed your toe so hard that for one shining moment you spoke a brand new language that even the devil said, "Hey, calm down, buddy"? Okay? It's the one thing we all signed up for without reading the fine print of life. Nobody told us that with the package of existence comes heartbreak, loss, and yes, the occasional stubbed toe that makes us question our entire relationship with furniture. But here's the thing, pain is universal, and if we don't learn to play with it, it'll play with us. Now, laughter. Laughter is the magic trick. It doesn't make the pain disappear like a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat, but it changes the way we see it. You can either cry about the heartbreak that crushed you, or you can tell a story about how your ex left you for someone who owns a llama farm, and suddenly, you're not just heartbroken, you're the star of a Netflix comedy special. Humor reframes suffering and takes the sharp edges off reality. Think of it this way: when we turn our pain into punchlines, we are reclaiming the narrative. Pain no longer dictates the story, it becomes the setup, and we deliver the punch. That's resilience. A scar doesn't just remind us we were wounded. When told with laughter, it becomes proof that we survived, and we did it with style. Like telling the world, yes, I fell, but did you see the face I made on the way down? And here's the beautiful twist. When we share those punchlines, we connect. Comedy is a bridge, a reminder that we're not alone in our mess. Somebody out there has also cried into a bowl of cereal, or worn mismatched socks to a job interview, or tripped in public and turned it into an interpretive dance. When we laugh together, we stitch our stories into a quilt of shared humanity. Finally, laughter heals. Science will tell you that it releases endorphins, lowers stress, and boosts immunity. But more than that, it teaches us joy doesn't have to wait for a perfect day. We can be standing in the middle of chaos, holding our broken pieces, and still find a way to smile. That's when we know we're not just surviving, we're living. So turn your pain into punchlines. Use humor as your shield, your sword, your medicine. Let the world see that your laughter isn't the absence of pain, but the triumph over it. And remember, every wound can be a setup, every scar a story, every heartbreak a standing ovation waiting to happen. Pain is universal. It's like the uninvited guest at the party of life who not only shows up without knocking, but eats all the snacks and doesn't even bring a gift. No matter who you are, where you come from, or how perfect your Instagram looks, pain finds a way to ring your doorbell at 3 a.m. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't check your calendar to see if you're busy. It doesn't care whether you're rich or broke, young or old, famous or invisible. It just barges in like, "Hey, I heard you're having a good day. Let me ruin that for you." And in that moment, you realize something profound. Everyone, absolutely everyone, is going through something. Pain is the one language spoken fluently by every single human being on earth. And yet, most of us spend our lives trying to dodge it. We act like if we just run fast enough, distract ourselves long enough, or smile wide enough, maybe pain will forget our address. But the truth is, pain doesn't lose track. It's got the best GPS in the world. It knows exactly where you live, and it shows up right on schedule. That breakup you didn't see coming, that job rejection that hit you harder than a sack of bricks, that loss that carves a hole in your chest, these are not accidents. They're part of being alive. Universal, inescapable. But here's the twist. Because it's universal, because it belongs to all of us, pain becomes something strangely powerful. Imagine you're sitting in a crowded room, surrounded by strangers, and someone cracks a joke about their worst day, the kind of day where the universe felt like it was playing a prank on them. Suddenly, people are laughing. Not because their pain is funny, but because everyone recognizes themselves in it. That's the secret. The universality of pain is not just about suffering, it's about connection. It's about realizing we're not as isolated as we think. When you break it down, what really separates us isn't the existence of pain. It's how we deal with it. Some people let pain bury them. They curl up and let the weight of it crush their spirit. Others, though, they take that same pain and twist it into something else. They find the absurdity in it, the irony, the ridiculousness of being human. They laugh at the breakup by remembering how they once wrote a love poem so bad that even Shakespeare would have faked his own death to escape it. They laugh at rejection by imagining the employer who said, "No," now working under flickering office lights that never get fixed. And in those moments, pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It softens. It becomes bearable. The universality of pain is also the universality of resilience. Think about the stories your grandparents tell. The ones where life knocked them down again and again, but somehow they still managed to laugh. We were so poor we ate the same soup for a week, and by the end, even the spoon begged for mercy. That's the human spirit in action. Pain was there, no question. But so was humor, and that humor became survival. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's easy to say when the pain is small, like spilling coffee on a white shirt. But what about the big pain, the life-shattering, soul-crushing kind? And you're right. Not all pain is equal. Some wounds are deep. Some losses feel unbearable. But even there, even in the darkest valleys, humor can sneak in like a candle. It doesn't deny the darkness. It doesn't erase the grief. But it reminds you that life is still here, still moving, still waiting for you to take a breath and find one small spark of light. Sometimes that light comes in the form of a shared laugh at the funeral, when someone remembers a story about the one we lost and everyone, through their tears, smiles. That's the universality of pain. It teaches us to find universality in love, too. Pain levels the playing field. It reminds us we're human. You can look at the most polished, confident, successful person you know and be sure of one thing. They've cried alone in the bathroom at least once. They've felt betrayed, abandoned, disappointed. They've lost something that mattered to them. The person who seems untouchable is carrying their own scars. That realization can free us from envy, from isolation, from the illusion that we're alone in our suffering. When you accept that pain is universal, you stop wasting energy trying to avoid it, and you start asking better questions. Not, how do I make sure pain never touches me? Because it will. But how do I grow from it? How do I use it? How do I turn it into something that makes me stronger, wiser, maybe even funnier? Suddenly, pain isn't just a thief in the night. It's a teacher, a mentor, even a collaborator. And when you share your pain in the form of a punchline, when you transform it into a story that makes others laugh, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing others too. So yes, pain is universal. It's the great equalizer. But it doesn't have to be the great destroyer. You can choose to let it harden you, or you can let it soften you into someone who knows how to laugh in the middle of the storm. And when you laugh, not because the pain is gone, but because you are stronger than it, you remind the world that even in our suffering, we are still gloriously, beautifully, hilariously human. A lot of reframed suffering. Think about that for a second. Reframes. It's like your life is a messy photo, blurry and off-center, and then suddenly, with the right frame, it becomes art. Pain by itself can feel unbearable. It's sharp, it's heavy, it's that voice in your head saying, why me? Why now? But the moment you wrap it in humor, it doesn't erase the suffering. It shifts the angle, the perspective. It gives you the ability to say, yes, this hurt me. But look at the ridiculousness of it, the absurdity, the comedy hidden in the chaos. And suddenly, you're not drowning in pain anymore. You're swimming in irony, and that's a whole lot easier to survive. Think of laughter as the ultimate survival tool. You can't always control what happens to you. Life loves throwing banana peels on the sidewalk of your plans. You walk confidently, head held high, and then bam, flat on your face, pride shattered. Dignity somewhere in the bushes. But here's the thing, if you laugh, you reclaim the moment. Instead of being the victim of the slip, you become the storyteller of the fall. And that shift, that reframing, is the difference between being crushed and being creative. You turn your suffering into a stage, and suddenly people lean in, not to pity you, but to laugh with you. This doesn't mean laughter denies pain. No, it doesn't brush it under the rug and pretend everything's fine. That would be like putting glitter on a broken arm. Pretty, but useless. What laughter does is help you carry it differently. It lightens the load. It's science. Too, laughter triggers endorphins, reduces stress, calms the nervous system. But beyond the biology, there's a human alchemy happening. Laughter takes your darkest moments and sprinkles light on them, enough to guide you through the next step. Think of the people who've been through the worst. Survivors of illness, loss, war, heartbreak. So many of them, when they tell their stories, use humor. Not because what they went through was funny, but because laughter gave them a way to process it. They'll joke about hospital gowns that make you look like a rejected superhero, or about losing their hair in treatment and finally getting to see what their scalp looks like in HD. Those laughs aren't about minimizing the suffering. They're about reclaiming control. They're about saying, this didn't take away my spirit. That's the power of reframing. And here's where it gets interesting. Laughter reframes, not just for you, but for the people around you. Pain has a way of making others uncomfortable. When you're hurting, sometimes people don't know what to say. They offer cliches like, time heals all wounds, or everything happens for a reason, which in the middle of suffering sound about as comforting as a mosquito buzzing at midnight. But when you add humor into your story, you give people a way to connect. You turn an awkward silence into shared laughter. You transform petty into camaraderie. Suddenly, instead of standing apart, they're standing with you laughing. And that laughter says, we're in this together. It's also about resilience. Every time you laugh in the face of pain, you're reminding yourself you're more than your suffering. Think of it like emotional judo. You take the weight of what's trying to crush you, flip it over, and land on your feet. The heartbreak becomes the punchline to a story you'll tell at dinner parties. The failure becomes the funny anecdote that teaches someone else how to keep going. You're not stuck in the tragedy anymore. You're rewriting it as comedy, and comedy, unlike pain, empowers you. Even the small moments of laughter matter. Crying in traffic after a bad day. If you can laugh at the irony of paying for gas just to sit still on a freeway, suddenly the day doesn't own you anymore. Burn dinner after a long shift, laugh, and it's no longer a failure. It's a gourmet charcoal experience you'll never forget. These are tiny reframings, but they add up. They teach you that no matter how bad it gets, you can always find another way to see it. The beauty of laughter is that it sneaks in when you least expect it. Sometimes, right in the middle of suffering, a laugh bursts out. Maybe it's nervous, maybe it feels inappropriate, but it's real. It's your soul reminding you that even in the middle of chaos, joy hasn't abandoned you. That laugh is proof you're alive, proof you can endure, proof that your pain doesn't have the final word. So when suffering shows up, and it will, with its heavy bags and no intention of leaving, don't just sit in the darkness. Find the joke, however small, however silly. Laugh at the absurdity of life, at the way the universe sometimes feels like a bad improv show. That laugh doesn't erase your pain, but it reframes it. It turns the unbearable into the survivable, the tragic into the teachable, the wound into the story. And when you laugh at suffering, you're not denying it, you're defying it. You're standing tall in the storm, saying, "You may hurt me, but you'll never take away my joy." Comedy builds resilience. That's the secret no one puts on motivational posters, but it's true. Think about it. Life throws its worst punches, and somehow, when you find a way to laugh in the middle of it, you come out stronger. Not because the pain is gone, but because you've learned to stand up, brush off the dust, and go, "Well, at least that was entertaining." Comedy is resilience in disguise, like armor hidden under a clown suit. It takes the same experiences that could break you and turns them into bricks for building strength. When something painful happens, you have two choices. Either let it define you or redefine it through humor. The beauty of comedy is that it turns tragedy into material. You fail an exam, you can cry. Or you can laugh about how the exam had questions that looked like alien hieroglyphics. You lose a job, you can sink into despair, or you can joke that now you're free to pursue your lifelong dream of professional napping. That joke may not change your bank account, but it changes how you face the challenge. It gives you a spark of control in a situation that feels uncontrollable. That spark is resilience. Comedy also acts like a shock absorber for the soul. Imagine life as this bumpy, chaotic road. Without humor, every hit feels like a crash. But comedy cushions the impact. It lets you bounce instead of break. That's why people who can laugh at themselves tend to get through hardships with more grace. They bend without shattering. They take the hit, wobble a little, and then keep moving, often with a smile. It's not that they're tougher. It's that they've built resilience through laughter. Think about the toughest people you know. Not the ones who act serious all the time, but the ones who can crack a joke in the middle of chaos. Soldiers in war zones telling jokes in the trenches. Patients in hospitals laughing at how terrible the food is. Families who've lost everything in a storm but still laugh together while cleaning up the mess. That's resilience in action. Those laughs aren't just noise. They're proof of survival. Proof that even when life hits its hardest, the spirit refuses to bow. There's also this magical thing that happens when you laugh at your own pain. It loses some of its power over you. It's like taming a wild beast. As long as you keep it locked in the dark, it grows bigger and scarier. But when you drag it into the light and make fun of it, suddenly it looks smaller, almost ridiculous. Heartbreak becomes a comedy about how you listen to love songs so intensely that your neighbors thought you were auditioning for a soap opera. Failure becomes a story about tripping over your own shoelaces while trying to sprint towards success. Every time you turn pain into comedy, you're shrinking the monster. You're saying, "You don't own me anymore." That's resilience, fighting back with laughter. Comedy also rewires your brain to see possibilities instead of dead ends. When you look at suffering with humor, you train yourself to spot the silver lining, the angle, the joke waiting to be told. You start believing that even if things are bad now, there's still room for joy, still room for creativity. That mindset becomes a habit. It's like building emotional muscles. Each laugh in the middle of hardship is another push-up for your soul. Eventually, when the next storm hits, you're stronger, faster, ready to bounce back. It's important to realize resilience doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means you don't stay stuck in it. Comedy is the rope you throw yourself when you're sinking. It's the reminder that you can rise even when life is heavy. Some people think laughing in the middle of suffering is inappropriate, that it's disrespecting the seriousness of the pain. But it's not disrespect, it's defiance. It's saying, "Yes, this hurts. Yes, this is hard, but I refuse to let it destroy my spirit. That's resilience in its purest form. And let's not forget the ripple effect. When you use comedy to bounce back, you inspire others to do the same. Your laughter becomes a light for someone still sitting in the dark. Think about comedians who share their toughest moments on stage, addiction, loss, depression, and make people laugh until their sides hurt. That laughter doesn't erase the suffering, but it tells the audience, if I can survive and laugh, maybe you can too. Comedy builds collective resilience, not just individual. It turns isolated pain into shared strength. Even in small, everyday struggles, comedy can build resilience. You burn dinner, the power goes out. You forget your umbrella and get soaked. These aren't tragedies, but without humor, they can ruin your mood. With humor, though, they become funny stories, tiny rehearsals for handling bigger pain. Every time you laugh at these small setbacks, you're training your resilience muscle. You're practicing for the big storms by laughing in the drizzle. So yes, comedy builds resilience. It doesn't make life painless, but it makes you stronger in the face of pain. It gives you the tools to bend, not break. It lets you stand up after a fall, not just with bruises, but with a story that makes people laugh. And every laugh is a victory, a declaration that your spirit is tougher than whatever tried to knock you down. Comedy doesn't erase suffering. It transforms it into fuel. And with that fuel, you keep moving, keep fighting, keep living with a smile. Connection through humor. This is where the magic happens. You see, pain has this sneaky habit of making us feel isolated, like we're the only ones in the world who tripped over life's rug and landed flat on our dignity. But humor steps in like a best friend, dusts us off, and says, hey, you're not alone. We've all been there, and trust me, we've all looked ridiculous while doing it. That's the beauty of humor. It takes suffering, polishes it with laughter, and turns it into a universal handshake. Suddenly, you're not locked inside your pain anymore. You're sharing it, and others are nodding, laughing, saying, yep, me too. Think about the last time you laughed really hard with someone. It wasn't just about the joke, was it? It was about the recognition, the relief of realizing somebody else gets it. Humor is the great connector. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old, from the suburbs or from halfway across the world. If you can both laugh at the absurdity of life, you've built a bridge between your souls. That bridge is stronger than pride, stronger than differences, and certainly stronger than the illusion that we're alone in our pain. Pain isolates, humor unites. Imagine you've just had a horrible day, boss yelled at you, your car broke down, you spilled coffee on your only clean shirt. Now imagine telling a friend about it. If they just nod solemnly and say, that's terrible, you feel acknowledged, sure, but not lighter. Now imagine they say, wow, sounds like your day was auditioning for a tragic opera. Suddenly you laugh and the weight shifts. That laugh is the glue. It says, we're in this ridiculous world together. Even in the darkest places, humor builds connections. Think of support groups where people dealing with grief or illness sit together. There are tears, yes, but also laughter. Someone cracks a joke about how hospital food could double as building material, and suddenly everyone's laughing through their pain. That moment of humor is not disrespect, it's survival. It's proof that even here, even in suffering, we can find each other, we can connect through laughter, and that connection is healing. Humor doesn't just connect us to others, it reconnects us to ourselves. When you laugh at your own pain, you're stepping outside of it for a moment, becoming both the actor and the audience. You see yourself not as a tragic character, but as a survivor with a sense of irony. That perspective builds self-compassion. Instead of beating yourself up for struggling, you laugh and say, well, at least I gave the universe a good show. That laugh pulls you back into connection with your own humanity. There's a reason comedy works so well in groups. Go to a comedy show, and you'll notice something extraordinary. People who walked in as strangers leave feeling like friends. Why? Because for that 1 hour, they shared the same pain, reframed through humor. They laughed at the same absurdities, recognized themselves in the stories, and felt less alone. That's the magic of collective laughter. It forges invisible bonds. Even if you never see those people again, for that night you were connected. Humor also cuts through barriers that otherwise divide us. Political, cultural, religious, generational, laughter leaps over all of it. A grandmother and her teenage grandson may not agree on music, clothes, or technology, but if they both laugh at the dog stealing food off the table, suddenly they're on the same side. Pain is universal, and humor is the universal translator. It takes our individual struggles and turns them into a language everyone can understand. The connection through humor doesn't always need a big stage. Sometimes it's in the smallest, most unexpected moments. You're standing in line at the grocery store, your cart squeaks like a dying bird, and the person behind you cracks a smile. You laugh together, and for that moment, you're not just two strangers. You're fellow travelers on the weird road of existence. Humor turns passing moments into shared humanity. But perhaps the most powerful connection comes when we share the deepest pain through humor. When someone stands up and tells a story about their struggles, wrapped in punchlines, and people laugh, not at them, but with them. That's a sacred moment. That's when connection becomes medicine. You realize the storyteller isn't broken, they're brave. And you, the listener, aren't alone in your wounds. You're part of something bigger, a circle of people surviving together. Connection through humor reminds us that life is both fragile and beautiful. It reminds us that we don't have to face pain in silence, that we can turn our tears into laughter and share them with others. That laugh becomes a lifeline. It says, you matter. You're not alone. And even in the middle of suffering, we can still find joy together. That's not just comedy, it's communion. So the next time you stumble, instead of hiding it, laugh and share it. Tell the story. Find the punchline. Let others laugh with you. Because in that laughter, you're not just easing your own pain, you're weaving threads of connection, building bridges across the islands of suffering, and reminding us all that the human spirit is never alone when it knows how to laugh. Healing with joy. That's the heart of it, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives treating healing like a grim duty, like it's something that has to be done in silence with bowed heads and heavy hearts. But what if healing wasn't only about scars fading quietly over time? What if healing could sing, could dance, could roar with laughter so loud it shakes the pain right out of your chest? Joy isn't just the outcome of healing. It's the very medicine that makes healing possible. And when you learn to laugh, to smile, to let joy seep in even when you're wounded, that's when true healing begins. Pain has this way of convincing us that joy is forbidden. You get hurt, you suffer loss, you go through heartbreak, and there's this voice that whispers, you're not allowed to be happy right now. You have to sit in this sadness until the universe decides you've had enough. But joy doesn't follow that rule book. Joy sneaks in like sunlight through a cracked window, like a mischievous child who refuses to leave the room. It doesn't wait for permission. And when you welcome it, even in small doses, you give your heart permission to heal. That first laugh after tragedy, that's not betrayal of your pain. That's proof that your soul is still alive, still fighting, still refusing to give up. Think about it, laughter literally heals the body. Science backs this up. Endorphins flood your system. Stress hormones shrink back. Your immune system gets a boost. Your body, in that moment of joy, becomes a better place to live. But beyond biology, there's something even deeper. Joy heals the spirit. It doesn't erase the memory of what hurt you, but it changes the way you carry it. Instead of walking with a wound that bleeds every time you touch it, you walk with a scar that reminds you not just of the pain, but of the strength, the humor, the resilience that grew from it. Healing with joy also means refusing to let pain write your entire story. Yes, the heartbreak, the loss, the disappointment are part of the book, but they're not the ending. When you laugh again, when you smile at something absurd, when you find yourself dancing in the kitchen, even though life still feels heavy, you're writing new chapters. You're saying, this story isn't over. And in the middle of all this chaos, I still choose joy. That choice is powerful. It's defiance wrapped in laughter. It's a declaration that the wound does not own you. And joy doesn't just heal you, it heals the people around you. Have you ever noticed how contagious laughter is? One person bursts out laughing, and suddenly the whole room follows. That's healing in action. When you allow yourself to laugh after pain, you're giving others permission to do the same. You're showing them that it's okay to hurt and still find joy. That healing isn't about locking away your feelings, but about letting light seep into the cracks. In that way, joy spreads like wildfire, burning through the loneliness of suffering, leaving behind warmth and connection. Healing with joy doesn't mean ignoring your pain. It means inviting joy to sit beside it. Imagine your heart as a room with two chairs, one for sorrow and one for laughter. You don't have to kick sorrow out, but you also don't have to give it the whole space. When you let laughter sit down too, when you let joy share the room, suddenly the weight is balanced. You cry, you laugh, you feel both, and in that balance, you heal. Sometimes healing with joy shows up in the simplest ways. A child's giggle, a silly movie, a friend making faces just to get you to crack a smile. Those small joys are like stitches for the soul. They may not look like much, but they hold you together when you're falling apart. Over time, those stitches weave into strength, and that strength becomes the foundation for living again. And here's the beautiful truth. Healing with joy doesn't erase your scars, it transforms them. Your scars become stories, your pain becomes punchlines, your suffering becomes wisdom wrapped in laughter. You walk into the world not as someone broken, but as someone who knows that joy is stronger than despair. That laughter, even in the darkest night, is proof that dawn is coming. So when you're hurting, don't wait for the day the pain is gone before you laugh again. Don't tell yourself you have to be fixed. Before you feel joy, joy is not the prize at the end of healing. It's the tool that carries you through it. Laugh, even if the laugh cracks through tears. Smile, even if it feels fragile. Let joy in, because joy is what tells your heart you're still alive, you're still whole, and you're still worthy of love and light. Healing with joy is choosing to believe that your spirit is bigger than your suffering. It's the decision to turn wounds into wisdom, scars into stories, and pain into punchlines. And when you do that, you're not just healing, you're thriving. You're proving to yourself and to the world that laughter isn't a denial of pain. It's a victory over it. So here's the truth. My friend's life will bruise you, break you, bend you. And then just when you think you've had enough, it will throw in a stub toe for good measure. Pain isn't optional. It's stitched into the fabric of being human. But what is optional is how we respond. And that's where laughter steps in, like a wild, beautiful act of rebellion. When you turn pain into punchlines, you're not pretending the hurt didn't happen. You're standing taller because of it. You're rewriting the script so the tragedy doesn't get the final bow. The comedy does. Every laugh becomes a scar kissed by light. Every joke becomes a bridge, connecting your wounds to someone else's until the whole world feels a little less heavy, a little less lonely. Lauder reminds us that we are not just survivors of pain. We are artists, storytellers, magicians who can turn brokenness into brilliance. So go on, trip, fall, cry, stumble, feel every ounce of it. But when you rise, rise with a smile. Take the chaos, the heartbreak, the rejection, the loss, and twist it into a story that makes the world laugh with you. Because in that laugh lies the healing, the resilience, the joy that keeps us human, and maybe, just maybe, the greatest gift we can give ourselves and each other isn't to avoid the pain, but to laugh through it together until our scars sound like punchlines.